Ambiguity doesn't faze divergent explorers, as they use it to ascertain what's possible outside the certainty of knowing. If you live within the tutelage of your surroundings which define what you know, how you know it, then cowardice or courage, for instance, coaches your acts, and you may or may not overcome fear. The point is, we surround ourselves with collaborative rhetorical systems inferred through the logic of coherence and buttressed by continuity. Such methods encourage operational intransigence to thrive within the morphology of identity. For example, this assemblage works fear into courage or cowardice. It's endemic to channeling individuals into subsequent actions within a given context, fight or flight. We indulge in these tactics and many others. But what is the true role of such a paradigm? Note that what remains hidden from the glare of the moment is how the practice orchestrates membership into a symbiotic correspondence between language as an agency to contextual relevancy, widely rehearsed in daily affairs. This is a prescriptive engagement, and humans automatically fall into it by default. Humans are still held accountable while losing perceptual agility and resourcefulness. They are manipulated by endorsing the type of recognition that draws individuals into those self-promoting traps. It is said that language is for communication. Not quite. Ask yourself, what is the nature of our relationship between contextual obligations and identity? Are we not endorsing contextual perception by synchronously engaging in a managerial system succinctly focused on the dynamics of contextual advocacy? We are so immersed that nothing is ever questioned in this matrix. What are the consequences of such an endorsement, you should be asking? Carefully consider the consequences of holding everyone accountable to a relationship which revels in limited options from which acts and supporting explanations bolster contextual duplicity. Perceptual latitude and ingenuity support freedom of experiences from the boundaries and dullness imposed by contextual surrogacy or reality substituted into a descriptive tolerance. Language contributes background arrangements in the form of explanations and histrionics. Humans then lose their deeper and wider perspectives as they are automatically being corralled like horses into a pen by contextual surrogacy, whose understanding becomes a de facto modus operandi. They become unwitting participants to a scheme, out to subjugate a type of perceptual freedom that can only be experienced intrinsically. Humans, forcibly occupied by context, are managed by it. They are turned into contextual tenants, or worse, contextual agents. And in that process, humans give up the malleability of the moment. Simply put, humans do not need these countless contextual traps, and there are many, but they are inexorably drawn into them like a moth to a flame. Are we not submissive to the language applied, formulating linear context which gives you reasons to consider? I am afraid because such reasoning is axiomatic and arises as an automatic correlation to situational context supplied by the myriad of scenes we enter and leave daily. Explanations beyond the signage of a correlation, regardless of coherence, are not linked to the way we account for it. Something else is going on and we are not seeing it. No way, right? Okay, let's rephrase this. If explanations symmetrically adjusted feed our understanding, how do we free ourselves from the subterfuge of being duped by the coherence applied? But if we are trapped by understanding, our narrative will explain and justify reasonably well the unfolding of action and counteraction in a manner that will cohesively sustain the exploitation of individual initiative, but only as an arrangement within the collective social consciousness, capitalizing the norm which then owns it. In better words, it's a trap and we've been made. And we then are forced into the terms of acknowledgement, manned by older mandates that fill our background. And because we've been trained to understand everything, we see no danger to it, to a reality substituted by description, enrolling humans in contextual dogma, duplicity, and captivity. But what is happening here? Is it that we create these links because we dare not upset the version of sanity summarized by the assemblages we live in? That personage in which we nest our sense of self protects and promotes a reality by proxy, from which it draws its descriptive relationships. Let me remind you, is there anything you see out there right now that does not have a name? That is the anomaly we live in. Having been trained since early childhood, we identify closely with this reality by proxy. Our identity, subjugated by the dogma of descriptive relevance, automatically screens through a self-defensive mechanism by expanding or contracting perceptual boundaries as we meet experiences populating daily events it must understand, agree with, or disagree. It's an axiomatic doctrine of renunciation or acceptance, and an involuntary default to how humans are being manipulated through a functional descriptive demonstrating limited options. It's the structured paradigm of speech which traps perception into its defined perspective, and speech often is parlayed as a directive due to the comprehensive nature urging its necessity. Speech is a display of human intelligence, but not a requirement of its display. Does the universe operate within the context of our understanding? What are the amplified consequences to human perception, devoid of the full spectrum of their available awareness? We would understand what cannot be understood by the perception of what is impossible to perceive. How do we hone an interpolation undeclared and unapproachable, if not by acting without rewards as a first step? Most people never attain full operational viability but don't realize it. There are thousands of studies proving that the way humans operate within present parameters sacks critical vitality, but it will not be read that way. Humans become physically and mentally ill and unbalanced by the confines under which they are forced to accommodate to contextual perfidy, and they suffer horribly as a result. But that suffering and its consequences will not be explained in a way to clarify an underlying cause understood by humans in their present conditions. Humans need freedom outside the boundaries and scope of their understanding, not just because humans are multidimensional beings, but will multidimensional perception framed by the modality of understanding undermine the full spectrum of its outcome? Understanding is only receptive to specific causal interpretations and cannot take central stage to our perceptual positions. If inferences are too limited, understanding as we know cannot be a precursor to an expansion of awareness. If it is, it contaminates that expansion with egocentric motives, such as converting awareness into power as a linear interpretation which undermines anything else not as comprehensive. This is what compromises the integrity of the growth process. The unknown as a precursor is a game changer. Its inferences are unlimited. At present, human awareness is groomed into contextual boundaries and hence can easily be managed by extraterrestrials with more expansive awareness. There are thousands of narratives of humans trained since birth into contextual representation being controlled by aliens as a natural occurrence of a more advanced hyperconsciousness. Humans have been multidimensional since birth. Many have had experiences that do not fit within categorized systems of perception. As we launch our resources towards infinity and total freedom, we begin to discover how our perceptual habits manage our individuality. We either ignore what we don't understand or propose an alternative context befitting our perceptual state. At this point, we are not yet equipped to challenge or negotiate a perceptual settlement beyond the range for which we are groomed into. Listen, when we operate our individuality intrinsically, we push those barriers aside as the scale of our development marginalizes our dependency on objectified attributes. Remember, we are both farmer and field and grow exponentially under the tutelage of self-discovery, intrinsically applied as both master and student, where such apportionment simply does not exist within those terms. And this is where non-action comes in. Non-action is action which unloads the relationship to perceptual captivity forged by contextual subjugation. It interrupts the consensus, the motion, the continuum, the momentum. It is action as non-action and moves assemblages the other way towards freedom and greater perceptual agility. Perceptual autonomy is the freedom to perceive our choices outside contexts, into the unknown and further, not through interpretations by means of the tools of context and outside the imposition from which mass hysteria binds the insanity of the norm by branding the world into characteristics of name and form. Can best be practiced through action, non-action, autonomy, self-determination, self-reliance. And under the tutelage of such freedom, you may perceive a world of contemporaneous designs in which many things happen all at once, and not as our explanations suggest as phased linear events portraying descriptions in the only manner they can be understood. The strategy submitted by explanations crowd around a nucleus beheld as a single event rather than simultaneous micro-macro events emanating from personages actively engaged through subjective intrinsic developments guiding self-discovery. Evidentiary trails are available but not particularly sought after, since the amplitude of experience resonates to the degree that humans are immediately, directly and perceptively engaged within the totality of experience. Information is not dressed inside a contextual paradigm to be explained or understood. The universe is the field, and the farmer or the seer are inexplicably linked to a reality that can be experienced but not understood. This is a reality in which duplicity cannot be manifested in. It just does not exist there. Alien awareness is a misnomer, since a multitude of different races of aliens visit Earth, each preoccupied with the agenda inherent to their perceptual awareness. This also means that perceptual awareness enables a variety of abilities we might call extraordinary, yet common within the subjective experience of that awareness. Many human beings immersed as contextual personages consider physical characteristics as critical denominators to, say, perceptual habits engaging a common reality. Yet each extraterrestrial civilization carry its own perceptual signature that submits an awareness that might easily overwhelm, match, or underwhelm other races contacted. The point here is, by objectifying our reality, we easily succumb to extraterrestrials who practice a direct subjective engagement of reality. Many aliens are reconcilable to human presence and abilities beyond the didactics common to human understanding. There are cross-alien groups in ships that include humans in their midst, and this is not science fiction. Awareness developed is universally practiced. If extraterrestrials operate beyond understanding, should we not get ready? Come and visit us at teachtolearning.com.